Wow. Look at this crowd.
Love it.
Nicole, let me know when to. We're letting people filter. Let me know when to go ahead.
Now we're just gonna, we'll give it a minute or two for everybody to get in the room.
I can't, the one that's like closer to the table, I can't really tell what that's from.
Yeah. Yeah, they are still at our house because the lights are on. They must be doing the hallway. Oh.
I hear you, Becca.
Okay, it's so quiet. I think that we can probably go ahead and start, Olivia, with some introductions. I'm gonna call them with Novel. Thank you all so much for being here. We are maybe a little surprised to still be doing Zoom events at this time of year, but I'm thrilled that you all were down to participate. This is certainly a super fun opportunity to get to chat with an author and her friends that otherwise we might not have been able to make happen physically anyway. So what a bonus. And I'm going to let fellow novel bookseller Olivia take this away, since she was the first one to really catch One to Watch and put it on everyone's radar.
Guys, welcome to, I guess, I was gonna say welcome to Novel. That's not right. Welcome to your own home. Like Nicole said, I found this book a few months ago before the book came out. It kind of just flew across my radar, and I gave it a read, and I was definitely expecting, you know, a super fun, awesome sort of summer read, but I was definitely not expecting what I got, which was easily my favorite book of 2020. I'm calling it in August. Probably the last 2 to 5 years as well. It just was a total game changer. And I figured that the best way to convey that to you guys was to give you a brief read of the review that I sent in to the publishers, because I can't do better than earlier me, I guess. So what I basically said was my entire review is OMG, because that's the first, second, and third and fourth thing to come through my head when I think about this book. And the fifth thing is thank you. As a woman who's not been thin since middle school, I can't adequately express my gratitude for this book and how it genuinely challenged me and helped me to renegotiate my relationship with my body. And that's not something I expected from a book about a fictionalized bachelorette type dating show. And B, women who have been hurt time and time again by the negative social implications of not having a perfect body truly finally have a hero that they can look up to. And that's truly, I think, what's amazing about this book, and what's so amazing about how many people are here to talk about it and to hang out with Kate and her friends. So rather than gush anymore about why I love it, I'd love to introduce Kate Stayman London, my hero, and the author of One to Watch, my favorite book.
Well, that's the closest I've come to crying before a book event has even started. Thank you, Olivia. That was so nice. Thank you so much. I'm so like Olivia. So that review that Olivia just read, I forget how it came to, maybe it was through the sales rep at Random House. I know Emma's on the line. Maybe she remembers, but she sent me that review like months before the book was even published. And I was like, what is happening right now? Like, you spend so many years writing, you know, by yourself in your little writing office where I am right now. It's not actually Paris. It's kind of, you get glimpses. It's just like my dining room where my desk is. And then you get to see the book go out into the world and see people have all these reactions to it. And it's been so exciting. So I really appreciate support from Olivia and from Novel. Has been so amazing. And I hope one day I'm able to visit Memphis and see your But for now, it's so nice that we can all be here together. So I don't know if we wanted to start. Did you want me to introduce the fellow travelers who are with me, or did you have other things first?
Yes, but first of all, I forgot because I was just so excited to tell everybody about how much I love this book. I forgot to do my actual job, which is to remind everybody. We would love it if everybody could, for the duration of this initial Q&A, if you could all mute yourselves. And if you come up with questions as we go, you can go ahead and put them in the chat box, and we'll be able to find them that way. And then once we're kind of done with the initial back and forth, Kate can introduce her friends and all that. Then we can possibly unmute ourselves for questions if we didn't answer your question in the chat, possibly. We'll try not to dissolve into anarchy. But yes, Kate, I hear you have some special guests.
I do have some special guests, and I even have one bonus guest that even you, the organizers of the event, don't know about. So I see that she knows that I'm about to embarrass her too. So first of all, so you guys, if you've read the book, you know that one of the features of the book is there's a Slack group that has a little bachelorette or main squeeze fantasy league in the book. And that is based on the real life fantasy league that my friends and I had. And so you might not, if you don't know about me, you might not know that I had a previous career in politics. And one of the jobs that I had many a moon ago was writing for change.org. And when I had that job, I met several of the people who are on this call, and some of us already had a mutual love of The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, and some discovered their love for The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, and they became characters in the book. And so I wanted to, as I introduce these folks, I wanted you to maybe say to the group what your character name is in the book, and maybe if you want to say what you have in common with that character, and maybe what makes you different from that character. So I'm putting you guys on the spot. So Nick and Jen, do you guys want to start?
Hi, I'm Nick. In the book, I played Nikki G. I mean, the big thing is that in the book, I'm not married to Jen, aka Beth. So that's different in real life. Yeah, Jen. Oh, I mean, I think there's just a real love of The Bachelor from a sort of like, you know, both a sort of a pleasure in the oddity of the whole thing, but then also there is something that is, you know, genuinely wonderful about watching TV about, you know, people finding love. So I think both go hand in hand.
I'm Jen. I am the character Beth Malone. I am that type A in real life. Kate nailed that. And I take rules very seriously. I am married to Nikki G, as you can tell. So that is different than how my character ended up in the book.
And I will say that there was one day, I think probably in like 2018 or 2019, when I texted Jen out of the blue and I was like, what's your middle name? And she was like, Beth. Why? And I was like, no reason. And then here we all are together. Jenna, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I think in the book, my name is the Pig Latin Enna J, which was a real throwback to me to summer camp. The thing that I have in common with that character is that I was the Bachelor newbie in our Slack group. I had no idea what was going on. I was like, who are these people? Why do they look the same? Why do they have the same name? I was very confused. People were patient. And the thing that is different is when I started a new job in 2019, I was a co-founder of a Bachelor night for all my coworkers where we watched together and had a Slack channel of our own. So that's my departure.
And finally, I think we gotta round it off with fan favorite Michael Whitney, who, true story, when one of my closest friends, Morgan Matson, who's an author and who's one of the reasons I decided to write a book in the first place, when she read the book for the first time, she was like, my favorite character in the whole thing is Colin. And I was like, who? Because it took me a second. And she was like, what are you talking about? Justice for Colin. And now she'll just like text me justice for Colin out of the blue every so often. So Michael, now that I spoiled who you are.
That's me. I'm the one who doesn't follow Jen's rules. And also, we do not end up together in real life. My actual wife is over here. This is Nicole.
I don't know if they can see me or not.
Yeah, I don't know if you can, but that's great. She's right here.
Hi.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I also enjoy Colin. Thanks, Kate.
And then bonus guest. This is not as much of a 1-to-1 ratio, but two of my very best friends in LA who were the first two people to read this book and tend to be the first two people to read everything I write. Allie Schouten, whose name is short for Allison, is here as well.
Hi.
If you want to say hi.
Hi. Should I do the same exercise?
Sure, yeah, even though the character isn't quite as based on you as the others, but if you want to.
But I would like to think that she is, because it's a great character. And I probably don't have nearly as good a taste, but I also love fashion. But I think the big difference is that Allison would never show up to a Zoom book event with wet hair. Never, ever. I think she's way too posh for that. So, but thank you.
So you are here with much of the cast of One to Watch, and Olivia, I'll throw it back to you.
One thing, Kate, before I forget, that Jenna just reminded me is that I was actually recruited for The Bachelorette, and Kate made a petition on Change.org.
Oh, that's right. No, we wanted you to be the actual. Oh, was it for The Bachelorette or was it for The Bachelor? It was to be.
I don't know. I didn't know anything at any point in time because I didn't really get into it until like 2017. But I got a message through like the thing that was like, "Hi, I'm a producer for The Bachelor, and we are interested in having you attend." And I was like, "Well, Kate, what do I do here?"
And then we made a petition, and so my character. So people are like, "Are you B?" And I'm like, "No, I'm Kat," and you can tell because her name is Kat and my name is Kate. I made it real complicated for you there to follow that Kat is my avatar in the book. And Michael had a t-shirt with the keyboard Kat on it, which was, I believe him in that t-shirt was the cover image of the petition asking him to join to audition for The Bachelorette. And so the naming Kat's avatar, keyboard Kat in Slack was a throwback to that moment.
Well, I love that. Indeed, justice for Colin all the way. That's a big yes. So I guess you kind of alluded to someone that inspired you to write the book in the first place or something. I would just love to hear about what got you started with this book. What kind of charged that? Sorry, I just got an email. You might have heard that.
Was there anything exciting? Was it good? Was there a good sale somewhere? No? Okay. So I started out in politics, as I mentioned, but in 2009, I moved to Los Angeles to get my master's degree in screenwriting because I had studied playwriting as an undergrad, and I thought, being a playwright, that's not really a career. Being a screenwriter is more of a career that you can do. Being a playwright is just, you can do it. It's a tougher path. And so I moved to LA to pursue that. And in my graduate program, I met the author Morgan Matson, who was just having her first novel, Amy and Roger's Epic Detour, which, side note, I absolutely love. And if you like the epistolary style of One to Watch, you should definitely read Amy and Roger because it's the story of a cross-country road trip, and a lot of it is told through like the fast food receipts and report cards, and it's YA, so it's a bit different, but it's a wonderful book. I love it so much. And Morgan was really the first person to say to me, "Hey, I think you should write a book." And I was like, okay, I could try that. And so I actually got started. I was working on a young adult manuscript because I knew her and I love YA, and I thought, why don't I try that? And a friend of a friend was a literary agent. And actually, much as Michael was recruited to perhaps audition for The Bachelorette, I was recruited to perhaps ghostwrite a memoir for the inventor of California Closets. That was an email that I got. Actually, also a connection from a former colleague of ours at change.org. I'll let you guys guess which one. And I was like, oh, I don't know anything about writing a memoir or like what a deal like that would look like. And so I asked my friend if he would put me in touch with his friend, the literary agent, and, ask her if she would just help me, advise me on like what the deal might be, how it should look. And then she was like, oh no, I would just like to represent you as a writer. And I was like, but you've never read anything of mine. And she was like, oh, but I've read your makeup blog. So I know that you're a good writer, because I had a makeup blog on Tumblr, very short-lived, back at that time. So I started writing a YA manuscript, which I think we took out in like December of 2014, actually, when I was spending some time in Paris, and actually shortly before Michael and I and another friend of ours met up in Iceland for a truly magical several days of our lives. And wasn't that, Nick and Jen, wasn't that when you were in Australia and we were doing competing Instagrams? It was the ice versus
With
wild.
Jenna.
Oh, with Jenna. And that book did not sell, which felt very sad to me at the time, but which turned out to mean that I was free when Jenna called me and asked me if I would consider coming to write for Hillary Clinton a few months later. So it all worked out, and I went and, you know, well, that didn't work out, but I went and wrote for the campaign in 2015 and 2016. And then when I came home after that was when I started working on One to Watch.
You alluded a bit to the style, which was truly one of my favorite things, that, you know, you have your kind of more traditional kind of formatting with following B, and then you've got in between the chapters, you've got like the outside world and the myriad of ways that kind of it is presented. I guess it's not so much of a question as a comment that was one of my favorite parts of the book. I shouldn't be running this. I'm too much. I don't have questions. I just have comments. But I think
I would like all my events to just be an hour of compliments. That's what that's how I'd like my book events to go.
Well, so that answers my question, which was, did it start out like, did you start with like story and then kind of delve into format, or was the formatting something you always knew you wanted to do? Like, I'm just curious about how that.
Yeah, so I had gone into the campaign with an idea that when it was over, I wanted to write like a sort of Bridget Jones on the campaign trail kind of political rom-com, was what I thought I would write when the campaign was over. And like a week after the election, I had dinner with my literary agent, and she was like, you know, I had lunch with an editor and I mentioned that you're my client and you had this idea and she wants to buy it. So like, how quickly can you write a proposal? And I was like, oh, I'll do it so fast. And then I would sit down for like 8 hours and write 3 pages and be like, look what I did. And my agent would be like, seems like you wrote 3 pages. And I'd be like, but are they good? And she was like, they're 3 pages. And so it became clear to me very quickly that I wasn't going to be able to, at that time, to write about the campaign. It was a little too fresh. So in early 2017, I was trying to figure out what to write, and I was looking for any kind of comfort I could find in my life. And as I often do, I turned to The Bachelor, and I was watching it every Monday, and it was Nick Viall's season. Nick, a fan favorite of mine. Great buy on Cameo, by the way. If you need a cameo for someone's birthday, Nick comes through for you. So it was March of 2017, the finale of his season, and I was sitting on my couch watching, and I thought, what if a plus size woman was the Bachelorette? And it was one of those things where it was just like such a simple premise, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I stayed up until 2 in the morning that night writing a proposal and sent it to my agent the next morning, just a quick 4-page kind of summary. And she was like, I love this. Do you think you could write more than 3 pages? So I was like, I don't know, let's find out. But I sat down that weekend and wrote the whole first chapter, and then it was just off to the races. And I always knew that it would have that epistolary element. The first thing I ever wrote was the contract that B signs. I knew that was where it all started for me. And I think like what I sort of came to understand in the writing process was, particularly having just come off the campaign and having had sort of an inside view at a thing that so many people had opinions about, and seeing those opinions reflected on the internet every day in ways that often had absolutely nothing to do with what we were actually living through, or what was really going on. That sort of was mirrored in the way that I was writing One to Watch and thinking about, okay, B is having this experience and I want us to be with her and see what she's going through in terms of the story. But then I also want to see like, what is the whole world seeing and what are they reacting to? And also, you know, obviously having the Slack group, but also the podcast serve as like a little bit of a Greek chorus to help you kind of navigate the story and how the audience that you're a part of would be reacting to, you know, what's going on with B, even as you're also identifying with her.
That's so interesting. Now, knowing that you have a background in playwriting, that does track very much. When you said Greek chorus, like that absolutely super tracks. which is fast. I love that. That's really interesting.
I mean, it all comes back to Aristotle at the end of the day. Everything we do, like, you just can't help it.
Thanks, Aristotle. Oh, hey, Kat has a question. Potential spoiler alert, and feel free to answer in a spoiler-free fashion, but did you write the book knowing how it would end, or did you feel your way? That was my next question, Kat. I love it.
Loving the psychic energy happening on this Zoom. Yes, I did always know how it was going to end, but I think there were a few things that had to change because I kept writing things that would then happen in real life, and like sometimes like very specific things. So there was like one contestant who had a secret girlfriend in an early draft, and then that was the summer that Rachel Lindsay's season was airing, and DeMario had the secret girlfriend, and so my editor was like, I think we got to lose that. And there was an even more specific thing where there used to be a plot point where Kindergarten Ben's class had a song called the Poopy Pants song that was in the book, and then at the end, at the reunion show, John Legend and the Gay Men's Chorus of Los Angeles came back to sing the Poopy Pants song, but then actual John Legend started doing diaper commercials where he sang something called the Stinky Booty song, and it was like, am I a witch? What happened here? So we had to take that out of the book also. But in terms of who B ends up with or doesn't end up with, that I always knew. But I would say that the thing that changed was like there was a character in the book who I originally conceived as like the pure villain of the book. He was the bad guy of the book. And the more that I wrote him, the more that I really fell in love with him and just was very charmed by him, and like, but also found that he was really important to be in her journey, and he wasn't a pure villain at all. And there was a guy who I intended to be kind of a romantic hero of the piece, and the more that I wrote him, the more that I was like, this guy's not perfect. He has a lot of baggage, and he has the capacity to really hurt B. And so while the plot itself didn't change, and sort of the turn of like, this one guy does this really villainous thing, this one guy is a really good heroic character, the shading of who they are and sort of how I felt about them changed a lot over the course of 2.5 years of writing.
Okay, we've got another question. Were any parts of the book inspired by the series Unreal? Reading the book made me want to rewatch the series.
So actually, yes, but in that, I really wanted to go in a different direction than Unreal, because I think that a lot of what Unreal does is sort of peel back the curtain and show you a lot of the sort of like manipulation and string pulling that happens. And I think that's pretty well trodden ground when it comes to reality TV. Like, we see a lot of articles, television, pieces, whatever about that. But the thing that was more interesting to me was like, people really do meet their spouses on The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, right? They really, like, I think the season that's most influential to me in terms of having written this book was Ashley Haber's season. And because Ashley H dealt with like a lot of insecurities when she was The Bachelorette. But she also, like, spoilers for that season, she meets her husband on that season. They're still together. They have 2 kids, and like, you can watch their first date and you can watch them fall in love. And it's like, that's insane. Like, when I'm meeting someone and falling for them, I'm so insecure about it. I'm such a mess. The idea of doing that in front of a camera crew and a couple of million people watching you every week was just crazy to me. So that to me was so much more interesting than sort of the producer machination and sort of like the behind the scenes pulling the strings to write a good story, partly because like I'm a screenwriter, it's my job to do stuff like that. So the falling in love piece was more interesting to me than the producer manipulation piece.
Next question from Colleen. Would you consider writing The Bachelor version with a leading man?
So I think I've done what I need to do in this world for now. But that in terms of books. But that said, there's always the TV and movies of it all, and who knows what might happen there. So if I were ever lucky enough to be able to adapt this as a television show, I think we would certainly see multiple, you know, if someone wants to develop it as a television show and then they pick it up to series and then it does spectacularly well, so we get multiple seasons, in season 2 and beyond, we might be able to explore seeing a man. And I have to say that I did Reality Seeds podcast last week, which was like one of the craziest things that's ever happened to me, just like low-key being on the phone with Reality Steve. And Reality Steve was like, if you did the male point of view, you could really unpack some of those misogynist, he didn't say misogynist, but he was like the tropes about the women and how they make them into villains and if they cry or if they're not here to make friends. And I was like, you make a good point, Steve. So Reality Steve had some good takes on what we could do with that idea.
We got another. I was gonna say, Nicole and Kat and I. One of the first things we talked about after we finished the book was like, "Where's the sequel? What's she gonna do next?" Like, the book came out like 10 minutes ago, and we're waiting for your next one.
I know people are like, "When's your next book coming out?" And I'm like, "I don't know, guys. I don't have an answer to that question."
Just send me whatever you've got going on, like the notes app on your phone, and that'll tide me over to the next one. We got a question. Where'd it go? Oh, what's your dream cast if it gets picked up as a show or movie?
Oh, great question. And I would say friends from the Slack channel, if you have any that you would like to throw in here. One for me is, I know he's not French, but I'm a big Oscar Isaac fan. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there's a video on the internet of when he was making Star Wars and Carrie Fisher slaps him in one scene, and she slaps him like 27 times in a row. And when I watched that video, I was like, I'm feeling some feelings and I'm not sure what's happening, but I think I need to write about it. And so that was how the Luke slap scene made it into the book. And ever since then, I've always thought of Oscar Isaac as Luke. I don't know, do any of you guys have ones that you like? Slack channel friends or Allie?
I know this is like maybe too obvious, but I've always pictured B as A.D. Bryant from SNL and other things. But I feel like you've had a different suggestion for that character. Kate, who was your person?
Oh, well, my thing with B was that I would really, like, my sort of dream is that we would cast a bunch of like super famous, handsome, sexy, wonderful men, and then that B would get to be some fabulous actress who maybe hadn't had an opportunity to have a starring role, and like that she could be a discovery who would get to like have a role written for her in a way that it might not have been before. That would be my dream for B.
I would be Chris Evans, and Chris Evans would be Colin.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I think Chris Evans would bring a lot to the role of Colin. I mean, if you guys have seen Knives Out, that guy can play a lot of different angles.
Steve Yeun.
For Asher.
Oh yeah, real good. For Walking Dead.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. We got another question. Sometimes shows like this and 90 Day Fiance make me less hopeful and more jaded. Why do you love reality TV, and does it make you feel better or worse?
I mean, everything makes me feel better and worse in 2020 is that. But I think, yeah, no, it definitely, and I think that some seasons are different than others, right? So like Peter's season, it really felt like the girls were just there to get famous on Instagram, and he didn't know what he was doing. And it was a bummer of a season, in my opinion. No shade to Peter, a little shade to Peter. But I think like there's some shows, and I think of, the seasons of The Bachelor and The Bachelorette or Bachelor in Paradise. I mean, even like people like Carly and Evan in Bachelor in Paradise, when like people who it's like, you guys are weird, but it works somehow. And like, or also shows like Project Runway or Top Chef. Like there are a lot of reality shows. I tend to like the ones that's where it's like someone has a real skill, and like that's what we're spending time with, is celebrating their skill. But I think to whatever extent the shows themselves are optimistic, that's where I tend to connect to them. The exception, of course, being Vanderpump Rules, which has become more complicated in the year of our Lord 2020, as Jen knows. Jen's making some faces right now. Yeah, but that one, sometimes you just have to live for the drama. And I would say that's true about Love Island too, because Love Island is one of my favorites. Although Love Island UK season 3 has one of my all-time favorite characters on reality television, and she had a rough run of it and ended up like meeting a person who was so perfect for her that I was like, this has to be fake. And then when I finished watching the season, I went to her Instagram and saw that they were still together, and like started crying because I couldn't believe it. And like now they're having a baby and they're so happy, and just like, man, sometimes it's the real thing. It's nice.
I just have one more question before. Oh wait, someone else has a question. What was your favorite bee outfit?
My favorite bee outfit. Well, today I have to say, so yesterday a crazy thing happened to me, which is I took over Tanya Taylor, the designer's Insta stories, and like her team sent me this amazing dress and invited me to like talk about the book on their Instagram stories, and that was just incredible. And so Bee's dress in Paris, that is inspired by a dress that Tanya designed for Edie Bryant, is like holds a very special place in my heart. But other than that, there's in the beginning of the book, sorry, a bug just flew in front of my face, so I did that. In the beginning of the book, when Bee has her first meeting with Lauren, she's wearing a Newark jumpsuit, and Newark is a brand that I know about because of Allie, because she always wears those jumpsuits and looks super cute in them. And then for publication of the book, Allie and Julia, our other friend, actually got me a Newark jumpsuit with roses on it, and that's what I wore on book pub day. So that was really special. And then of course the Christian Siriano couture gown, because how can we not love a couture gown in a castle in France? That's just everything we need, I think.
I wanted to ask, spoiler alert, it looks hot, according to Allison. I wanted to ask about Lauren, because I know that's a character that a lot of people have like thoughts and feelings about. I certainly did. I'm trying not to spoil it. I don't know what the standard for spoilies is here, but I think, like, needless to say, it's interesting when you're reading a book about the Bachelorette and you're expecting to get in here ready to like hate all these men, maybe, that we're reminded that women have the capacity to hurt other women as well. So I thought that was a really interesting choice, and I would just love to hear about like kind of the role you see Lauren playing and how you developed her and all of that.
Yeah, so Lauren, so she's the executive producer of the show, and she's the one who recruits Bee to come and be the star. Hands down the most difficult character in the book to write. She had a different name. She went through like totally different personality iterations. And then I ended up, and my editor every time would be like, so the producer character. And I'd be like, what are you mad about now, Emma? Emma's on the call. Hi, Emma. And eventually what I had to do was just go back to the drawing board, and I gave her a new name, wrote a whole bio and backstory for her. And what I really came to, Emma says it me, hi Emma. What I really came to was thinking that, like, to me, all the most compelling villains have a philosophy that you can kind of understand and get behind, right? And like, you don't agree with their means and what they do, but you can understand. And so I think like Thanos in the Marvel movies is like a really good example of that. Like no, it's not good to kill half of all people, but like he's actually like, he's thinking about like resource allocation and like poverty, and like he has an opinion that like you can kind of, so for me with Lauren, coming to this idea that she actually sees herself as a feminist, and she sees casting Bee as a feminist thing to do, and surrounding her with handsome men vying for her affection is creating a fantasy for plus size women, right? She's coming from a sound logic system in her own mind, and then she sometimes deviates from it, but that she doesn't see herself as a villain, right? Because villains never do. They see themselves as having a goal and going out and trying to achieve it. So that was figuring out the sort of right calibration for Lauren, where I didn't want it to be a cliche where she's just some manipulative producer and that's all she is, and nor did I want it to be a fantasy where she's just like a cheerleader and she's not also really concerned with ratings and doing her job, because that wouldn't be realistic either. So to find something that was kind of in between those two things and had a philosophy that I could understand too.
Love it. We have a question. Are you looking forward to the next season of The Bachelorette?
Oh man, it's so crazy what's happening, right? Are you guys following the madness? So I was really excited for Claire's season, first of all, because I've been a Claire fan since the Juan Pablo season and the refusal to be slut shamed for having sex in the ocean, because everyone, I mean, that seems logistically complicated to me, but other than that, I think everyone should have sex in the ocean if you want to. But also just to have like an older bachelor, especially after Peter's season where like everyone was 23, to like have a 38-year-old bachelorette, to have someone who's like a little older and knows what she wants. I was very excited for Claire's season, but now apparently, and I was actually on the phone with Reality Steve right after he had like gotten a tip that it was going to be Tayshia. And so he was like, I have to tell you something. And I was like, what is happening? But I love Tayshia. I'm a big Tayshia fan. The whole John Paul Jones thing, I'm not sure about that one. But I'm looking forward to it. And I feel like, I don't know, like everything's so weird right now. And I feel like what could be better than a really weird pandemic season of The Bachelorette? Like I'm here for that. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful it's going to be weird and not terrible. But even if it's weird and terrible, it'll, it's going to be something worth watching. I'm excited for it.
We have another question. Didn't reality TV as such start with the writer's strike in the very early aughts? Do you all think the genre has improved? Not a huge fan of it, but am a huge fan of this book and B's emotional whiplashes and how she manages.
So reality TV definitely predates the writer's strike. So the Bachelor first started airing in spring of '02, which is when I was a freshman in college. And I, in fact, as an 18-year-old, took it upon myself to write a letter to ABC to let them know that while I enjoyed their show, The Bachelor, I felt it was sexist that they did not have a companion show called The Bachelorette, and I felt that they should do that in order to be more equitable. And I did not receive a response. I've received no residuals or credit for the fact that The Bachelorette was my idea and I assigned it Kate Stayman London, Amherst College Political Science Department, which was like pretty rich for someone who had taken one poli-sci class. And it was like a very earnest letter. It's so bad. I still have it. So reality TV was starting, but then the writer's strike was, I believe, '07, and that really sort of accelerated it because there are writers on reality TV, as you may have guessed, but they're not in the Writers Guild. So that's a whole different workers' rights issue that we can get into. I can throw to Nicole if we need to get a little, or Nick, frankly. We have a lot of labor movement employees and former employees on the call here. But yeah, so I think it's interesting because when I look back at like those early seasons of The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, they feel really boring, but also kind of pure in a way that's like really nice. So I think overall reality TV has gotten better over the years because the producers have gotten better, the cuts are faster, but it also is like, I sort of feel this way about all entertainment, that there's this expectation that everything's going to be so fast paced and hold your attention at every single turn, and that doesn't like leave a lot of time to kind of let things play out in a more organic way. And so I wish that there was a way to find like a little bit more of a balance between that kind of like old school, we're just kind of gonna, the real world, we're just gonna point the camera at you and see what happens. And now where it's like, I think things are much better produced and the producers are better at their jobs, but they're so good at their jobs that kind of sometimes you can see the strings being pulled, and that's not as fun.
Another question. I feel like one of the most powerful themes of the book is examining the media and media culture. What made you want to explore that in this book? And then she says, sorry for a non-Bachelor related question. You can ask as many non-Bachelor related questions as you want, guys. Totally.
You can ask anything you want. So I'm really interested in media culture as, a person who's on the one hand a screenwriter who lives in LA, and on the other hand a person who works in politics around feminist causes, anti-racist causes, LGBTQ inclusion, and sort of seeing how much media can really, when I was applying to grad school in, I guess 2008, whenever that was, I wrote about how I had worked for the Human Rights Campaign in DC and like been a part of the gay rights movement, but that also like I had seen the way that Will and Grace had accelerated the movement for gay rights in a way that movement-based work alone could never do. So I think that sort of media representation and inclusion is incredibly important as a counterpart to sort of movement-based political work, right, in terms of pushing for social change. But I also think that there's like a real double-edged sword there, because part of like the media, right, and we're seeing this right now. So like the same way that there are people in the media who felt really free to attack B, there are people in the media now who are feeling really free to attack women who may or may not be on the presidential ticket in the next couple of weeks. And this idea that a powerful woman who can speak her mind, who can say what she wants, is someone who we have to take down a notch, and someone who we have to let her know that her power is contingent on our consent, that she should have that power. And I think that that's bullshit, if I'm allowed to say that on this call. And so that was something that I really wanted, thinking about the both as sort of thinking about her as a fat woman who has had to create her own platform on Instagram, right? Because she's not someone who would be given a column in Vogue or something like that, right? As looking the way that she looks. So first of all, that piece of it. But then as she gains more power, having created her own platform, who is going to sort of come for her and not feel comfortable with the kind of power that she's having and wielding. And then even more so as she's invited back into the fold of sort of like the inner media gatekeeper circle when she goes on Main Suite. So that's probably too long and sort of many-armed an answer for the question, but I think it's a really fascinating topic, and I'm sure it's something that I will keep thinking about and writing about, because I think, you know, as we can see with what's going on right now, we're nowhere near past it.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicole says there are some really beautiful descriptions of locations throughout the book: Bee's home, LA scenes, Marrakesh to France. It was so much fun making the backgrounds. Nicole made the backgrounds for us, y'all. She did an amazing job. It seems like France holds a special place in your heart. Have you lived there yourself or just traveled there?
So I guess the longest I've lived in Paris was for a month, but I've traveled there a lot. The first time I went was in high school with my high school French class, and actually my high school French teacher, who I had not heard from in a very long time, reached out to me that she read the book. So that was very sweet. But I love France, and we also, all of us who worked for change.org, she still works there, our former colleague, because we don't work there anymore. Sarah, who runs change.org in France, is one of my very close friends. So I go and spend time with her, and she comes here and spends time with me. And I also, my dear friend Tia, with whom I wrote the wine guide, that novel email to all of you all, she and I traveled to the Loire Valley together. And so the sort of the Chateau Chenonceau sequence and that scene in that area, and also the Champagne sequence, and we traveled to both of those regions and went wine tasting the summer of 2017, right after I had sold the book and when I was getting ready to write the first draft. And I had also been to Morocco earlier that year with some other friends. Actually, my friend Lilia, who this dress that I'm wearing now was my bridesmaid's dress for her first wedding. And so she and I went to Morocco together, and that made it into the book as well. So it's just, I love travel. And like a thing that I love about The Bachelor and The Bachelorette is that it's a travelogue, and you get to see all these amazing places. And so I wanted to write about some of my favorite places too.
Nice. Nick asks, favorite fight on The Bachelor or Bachelor in Paradise? I guess Bachelorette too.
Oh, favorite fight. That's a good one. Original season 1, when Alex breaks up with Rhonda and she has the panic attack and she's like, I just can't breathe. And then they have to send in the ambulance. And it's like the first time that happens on reality TV, and it's iconic. It's so good. And Alex is like, Rhonda is a genius, but I just don't see it working out. And it's like, I think one of those things is true. And that's a really good one. I would say also the Carly Kirk breakup, and I think that's season 2 of Bachelor in Paradise. Allie's nodding, so I know that's right. That's an icon. That breakup like hits me hard, because it felt like the kind of blindsiding that I have certainly experienced in my romantic life, and especially the way the other women on the show like closed ranks around Carly and were like, we're not going to let you speak to her after what you just did to her. It's like so much the way female friendships have worked in my life, and like I identify with that one a lot. Like the Peter Rachel fight, which I watched when I was in Amboise with Tia, which maybe that's why Amboise became such a dramatic location in the book. Maybe not, who's to know. But that fight, I was like watching it in this Airbnb, and I was like, this is too personal. Like, I shouldn't be seeing this, the Peter Rachel fight. It's incredible. It's so good. Those are did anyone else in the Slack channel, since this is a Bachelorette one, do you guys have any favorite fights or just favorite moments from the show or favorite seasons? Any of those that you wanted to talk about?
I only started with Rachel's season because Nick and Jen brought us in probably about with 6 episodes to go. So
Yeah.
I don't have anything. I just wanted to speak up. Great.
I think mine, I have a weird soft spot, not perhaps it's the same way as my character. I love to hate Chad. And so when Chad had his little explosion at Chris Harrison, F you, Chris Harrison.
Do you want a mimosa?
Yeah.
It's just a classic.
It's just so great. It's good TV. So I love that.
I like it. His love of meat trays is just so
he's just like
relatable.
Like housing some turkey.
Oh, speaking of snacks, the scallop fingers thing in Bachelor in Paradise.
Oh, scallop
Scallop
fingers. Classic.
I truly can't tell men apart, so I don't have a good answer here.
That's a good answer, Jenna.
That was the most ideal answer.
Oh my God. Allie, do you have one? Do you have a favorite fight or moment?
Well, so since I finished the book, and I've read multiple drafts, but then also read the published book in one day because I love it so much. And then when I was done, I just started rewatching the Bachelor and Bachelorette seasons that are available online. And so I just rewatched Juan Pablo's season. And when he is dumping Claire at the end, he goes to give her a hug and she goes like this. And they like let you hear the live audience just cheering. And it's so great. And then she just tears into him. And of course he's just, it's okay. But she just puts her hands up like, no, you can't give me a hug. And it's so satisfying because she's been so forgiving of him the whole season. And it's just right there.
Oh, and then that after the final rose with Juan Pablo and Nikki was like one of the like most bone chilling things I've ever seen on television. Because Nikki comes in like total Stepford wife, and she's like, "I'm very happy with Juan Pablo," and it's like, "No, you're not." And also like, "Are you gonna be dead in a week? Like, what is happening?" It was a very dramatic season. Not one of my favorites, but also Colton jumping the fence. Colton was such a stupid bachelor, but the fence jump, and then Chris Harrison's like, he jumped fence. It's just like totally like that will live forever as one of the iconic moments of the franchise, I think.
Okay, we've got a theoretical question. What would a male lead do at the main squeeze rose ceremony if not a new lip color every week?
Oh, yeah, that would probably be. So this is a fun one. In an earlier version of the chapstick scene, the men did all wear lipstick and kiss B on the cheek, and my editor was like, "I think that makes it read as kind of a joke." And I was like, "Emma, why aren't you cool with like alternative gender presentations?" And she was like, "That's not what my note is about." And I was like, "Well, what if I made it about that?" So I don't know. What would a man? Do any of you guys have ideas? What would a man do if not? I guess he could still do the kiss on the cheek, and it just wouldn't, because it would still be the kiss off ceremony, and it just wouldn't be with a lip product. Also, it would just be a.
I guess the women could kiss him, and his face would be like coated.
Yeah.
I invite you to give me a kiss. That could be fun.
Emma says she's getting read to death, only with the deepest love, Emma, because I do have to say, like, if you guys like this book, it's because Emma is just an exceptionally good editor. And she absolutely, like, every time I was lazy about something or I knew that I hadn't like done the work necessary to write quite the best version of something, she would never let me get away with it, but always in like the kindest way, always with the most support and warmth to like help get to the right solution that was going to make me happy and be right for the book. And she'd come to every single book event, like the proud stage mom I never had, and I just really loved her. So lots of love to Emma, despite the being read to death.
Thanks, Emma. We have another really, really good question. First comment, thank you for a book that was so much fun, but also brought up big issues and did so in a way that I respected and admired. And what are some of your favorite books to recommend to friends, and what are you currently reading?
Oh, great. Oh, Emma. Great question. So I mentioned Amy and Rogers' Epic Detour by Morgan Matson. Definitely pick that one up. Americana, if you haven't read that book, has blog posts interwoven throughout and is just like, it's one of those books that's so good. It's a little bit like, fuck you, I'll never be able to write a book that's good, but it's just like, it's excellent. I think you'll really like it. Also, Where'd You Go, Bernadette is sort of like, it's also the epistolary style, but much more in the comedic vein. And I love that book as well. This summer, I've read Party of Two by Jasmine Guillory, who Jasmine has just been one of the like, she and I we were Twitter friends during the campaign because she's just like very into politics. And so she was like tweeting at me about Hillary stuff. And I was like, who's this girl? I don't know her. She seems cool. And then the next summer, The Wedding Date came out. And I was like, oh, my Twitter friend is a giant best-selling author. And she's been like unbelievably supportive throughout this whole process. Her blurb is on the cover of the book. We did a book event together. She's been amazing. And so Party of Two is like a book specifically for me. It's basically like The American President, but with a senator and a lawyer, if it took place in 2020, and was like a lot about anti-racism. And I just like, I love it. It was so much fun. And now I'm reading Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, which I would say is a much steamier book than my book is. And sometimes in 2020, when we've been alone for several months, that's what we need in our lives. So I recommend that one to you all as well.
Someone asks, how did you come up with the podcast ads and the pop culture references? They were so good. Indeed, they were.
Oh, man. I loved writing those podcast ads. That was one of my favorite things to do. I mean, the pop culture references are just, that's how I talk. Like, if you're friends with me, like, there's not going to be a day that goes by where I'm not referencing Buffy. Michael, I don't know if Buffy's available to be on the call. Michael and Nicole have 2 dogs named Buffy and Willow. Like, I'm going to be making Buffy references. Hi, Buffy. I'm going to be like, you know, talking about Mad Men or Sex and the City or, you know, whatever I'm watching. That I've been watching House for the past couple of weeks in quarantine. And so like, I was literally my computer was dying the other day and I was on the phone with the guy from Apple support. And I was like, do you ever watch House? And he was like, what? And I was like, cause I feel like we're like on a diagnosis team together trying to figure out I didn't need to say that. It wasn't like we were just like talking about like what kind of reboot I needed to try with my computer, but that was always going to be in the book because that is unavoidable for me in both my life and my writing. Sorry to everyone who knows me, I guess.
Life imitates art. It's perfect. It's appropriate.
One of the best emails that Kate wrote at change.org was people were petitioning Nickelback to not play the Thanksgiving Day parade or Thanksgiving Day football game in Detroit. And Kate wrote an email saying that even though we lost the petition, hopefully it would deter them from hiring Creed to do the next year's Thanksgiving Day show. And that's just...
I did read Creed to filth. That one I will cop to. I did.
And somebody on Reddit called that the best display of collateral damage that they'd ever seen. And I think about that Reddit comment specifically just all the time in reference to Kate's just brilliance.
So Kate before she ever wrote a book.
I do like to do collateral damage, just like slide it right in there.
Love it. Someone wrote, Kate, I loved your book and I loved the wine pairings with the book. I drank an unreasonable amount of them while reading it. That's a great strategy. What is your own wine of choice while watching The Bachelor or Bachelorette?
Oh, great question. I feel like you can't go wrong with rosé. And I like, if it's like the summer, I want like a very like sort of fresh and lively Provence, like very traditional kind of rosé. And if it's the fall or winter, I like sort of a deeper, flintier rosé. If you haven't had a rosé from the region Tavel, Tavel, you can often find very affordable rosés from there. They're a little darker in color and like flinty and more minerally, and they're great, especially as like a Thanksgiving wine. They pair really well with turkey. And it's Los Angeles, so it's never like that cold here. I do drink more in the winter. I'll drink more reds. I drink a lot of Gamay, which is sort of like a funky, again, like Tia has really pointed me in this direction, my friend who I wrote the wine guide with, to find like wines that you love that are examples of things that aren't like the most expensive version of it. So like that you can like really find great, interesting wines from like smaller, more offbeat regions. And I will mention, since she's on the call, that in 2018, my dad was sick and I was having a really hard time. And Tia took me out to Long Island to go Long Island wine tasting. And Emma recommended a vineyard called Contra Costa Vineyard in Long Island. And Tia and I went there and we drank the Cab Franc there, which is absolutely beautiful, and like sat looking at the ocean, drinking the red wine. And like that was like a very special moment for me. And so that's just another little shout out to Emma.
Well,
too many shout outs to me. I just have to say I'm getting really overwhelmed. I just want to thank you.
I know it's really different because I've done a bunch of these, but usually it's just like the speaker on main and I can't see everyone, but it's like really fun to be able to like see how everyone's reacting as I'm talking about them, which makes me want to do it more. So.
Well, I was just going to say, I feel like I've been talking a lot and we seem like a pretty well-behaved, well-managed group. So if there's anyone who wants to like unmute themselves and say anything at this point, if anybody else wants to profess their love or I guess whatever feelings they have, hopes, dreams, fears.
If you hate it, you can say that too. I don't think it'll be that fun for everyone else, but like you can do it.
I feel like ego-wise, you're balanced enough. Everything I'm throwing at you is balanced enough that someone could come say they hate it and you'd still walk out of here pretty good. So.
I have to say, if someone hated this book and was like, I'm going to sit on this thing for 55 minutes on the off chance that they're going to let me talk it, like, you've earned your chance to say that.
Earned it. For sure, yeah. So
it's me. No, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, if anyone has anything they'd like to say, they're welcome to do that at this juncture. Okay, my best friend Isabel is making that face that she's making when she wants to say something. Anyway, someone says, thank you for the wonderful book. That's good.
I'll pipe up. This has been the most fun book author chat that I've ever been to. So thank you so much for doing this. And I kind of want to be best friends with all of you, but that also sounds kind of creepy. So please don't think I'm going to stalk you down because I'm not actually going to do any of that. But this has been really great. So thank you. And the book's
maybe
really
we'll
fun.
do like a big, first of all, thank you. That's incredibly kind. And that maybe we'll do like a big, maybe we'll let Jen be in charge of like a big Bachelorette fantasy group that like want to watch.
Will do.
Okay.
Will manage a giant Bachelor bracket. Thanks, Kate. You're all invited. We're definitely doing one season, like for sure. So you're all invited to our bracket. I have a very strict management policy. No spoilers before 12 the next day.
Like if you guys think that Beth is tough, you don't even know. You've never met Jen.
We've got a lot. I feel like I don't even need to read them. Everyone can see the comments. We've got a lot of fun love and comments coming in. Kat has reiterated that we are going to hand sell the living crap out of this book, which is true. I've sold it these last couple weeks, so yeah.
Well, I've only ever been to the Memphis airport, so hopefully one day when travel is safe again, I will be able to come. I will sign as many copies as you want and get to give you all big hugs, and thank you so much for how incredibly supportive you've been.
I feel like if it doesn't entice you enough, we have an attached bar to our bookstore where there is wine. So
much wine. And a full
Is it like the
restaurant.
Winebrary on Single Parents? I don't know if you guys watched Single Parents. It got canceled, which was very sad. But one of the characters named Poppy had a store called the Winebrary, which like it's just like what could be better than it was just like a feminist bookstore where there was also wine, and I want to live there. That's the pop culture references. I didn't even mean to do it.
Loved it. Well, thank you guys.
Oh, and I before we go, I meant to mention. Now I can't find. Oh, here it is. The lipstick that I wore for the call is a tube of, it's the first tube of Chanel I ever bought at the Gallery Lafayette. So I wanted to wear that for you guys.
Oh, perfect.
I love it. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Kate and crew. We will look forward to the brackets for The Bachelor. We'll all be on there, right? Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Jen.
But yeah, thank you guys for doing this. This was super special. And yeah, thank you, Kate, for writing a book that is just unlike anything I've ever read. And I've I'm not traditionally a romance reader per se, but YA was my genre. I was the kids manager for years, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we may have hosted Morgan Matson many years ago.
That's
This had a
amazing.
different name. It would have been Booksellers at Laurelwood, but I believe she was there.
That's awesome.
So yeah, just thank you for writing this, and thank you all for being a part of this. And yeah, I hope we get to see you in person someday.
Someday. It's like next year in Jerusalem. Next year at Novel Bookstore in Memphis.
Exactly. All right. Thank you, everyone. Y'all have a great
Bye,
night.
guys. Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, everybody.